Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 8th episode of the Pigskin Project. I know it's a little delayed due to, unforeseen circumstances and, just an all of a sudden trip to Indianapolis for both of us, which we'll get
Well,
to.
for you, I don't know what you're talking about. I live in
Oh,
Indianapolis,
yeah, this
baby.
man had to drive 10 minutes away, but I
Oh
I
yeah.
had to do a couple hours worth to and from. um we'll get to the trip and everything, but Ben, how are you doing? Did you get some rest after the trip? And how does it feel to be out of the stadium for the first time in 4 days?
Well, like you said, we'll get to it, but it's like, I spent, like a 4 day span of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I spent like most of my day there, so it's kind of weird to kind of get like adjusting back to normal life. But let me tell you, it was fun and a lot of fun. But the first thing I did was take a long, long nap, but it was very fun.
Yeah, I remember, because for me, and like I said, we'll get into our experiences and everything, but as far as naps and sleep goes, I remember coming back on Friday and just passing out that night. I was so tired, but um like I said, multiple times, we will be getting to our combine experiences. It was a lot of fun and I can't wait to talk about that. But first, we have some news. Calvin Ridley has been suspended for the entirety of the 2022 season for gambling while he was on his mental health break. And, when he stepped away from football, he said that it was because of his mental health that he needed to check on and everything. According to him, and other league sources, that involved spending, I think Calvin Ridley came out and said that he spent just around $1,500.
Yep.
So, that was his mental health check. Ben, what was your reaction when you got the news that happened?
Well, just like a few different things. Like it's just shocking for like somebody who's and again, I don't doubt he had like mental health issues. Again, I'm always gonna side on the player saying that. I think mental health is a big deal, and I've always been an advocate for it. You'll never see me not. But it's very weird to me that he was talking that he needs the mental health break and away from football, and then betting $1,500 on said football. I saw a tweet saying that the reason he was having mental health issues is because his parlays weren't hitting. uh, um, but and it adds kind of like a wrench into this free agency wide receiver class, um, which we will get to. But it adds a wrench in this free agency wide receiver class. And he wasn't so much a wide receiver, but you always expected him to be on the move. And now that he isn't on the move, that he's missing this next year, it kind of messes things up. But that being said, his void is going to be filled with Amari Cooper. I mean, Amari Cooper is coming out, and we'll get to that. But props to the Falcons, because reports came out today after the Calvin Ridley stuff that the Falcons were just shutting down offers for trades for Calvin Ridley, not because they didn't like the offers, but because they knew what was going on behind the scenes and they wanted to be a respectable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that,
Being classy.
I think for the Falcons, honestly, and you can say that it's a bold take if you'd like, but I think that almost because the Falcons knew what was going on and they didn't punish him, I think that they should be held accountable for that. But at the same time, Calvin Ridley was technically like temporarily retired. So, you know,
No, it's nothing against it. Like, I don't think they knew it was going. Again, like league sources came out saying they didn't know what was happening. But again, like I want to give props to the Falcons for shutting down all the trade offers they got for him, because they easily could have traded him
But once they figured out this was happening, because again, the reports came out, the investigation started February 9th. And props them for shutting down the trade talks for that. Because that's what they did. They shut down the trade talks because they knew that this was happening. Like once they figured out it was happening, they decided to shut it down. And they the like organization. Because they could have traded him. They could have been like, yep, we'll trade you him. But they knew what was happening once the investigation, and they decided to be a classy organization and shut down the trade talks. So I really want to give props to them for that, because they didn't have to, but they decided to be a respectable organization and shut down those trade talks.
Right. And speaking of trade talks, Aaron Rodgers still has yet to make his decision as far as, as we speak. Tomorrow is the franchise tag deadline. You guys should be listening to it as the news breaks, but Aaron Rodgers, as far as we know, standing right here, has not made a decision whether or not he wants to play and be a Green Bay Packer or retire or be a part of a franchise that wants to trade for him. Now, there was news that Denver and Pittsburgh and Tennessee all had different trade proposals that were accepted. It's just the Packers don't want to give away Aaron Rodgers if they don't necessarily have to. Green Bay also has an offer on the table for an extension if Aaron Rodgers chooses to do so. So Ben, let me get your thoughts on this before I go on my little rant, just because as a Bears fan, I was already frustrated to begin with, but hearing this and everything, made my blood boil just a little bit. But Ben, what you got for Aaron Rodgers?
Well, for all of the Aaron Rodgers saga, because let's be honest, that's what we have to call it after everything that's happened over the past 2 years. I've come out and I've said I think he's staying. But again, good on them for both of the or for the Packers to have like both plans. They have plans for his extension if he wants to stay, and plans for like if he wants to get traded. And I'm sure you will get into this, but Charles Barkley had a phenomenal quote. Charles Barkley said something along the lines of, Aaron Rodgers is the girl that you have to tell her that she's pretty every day. And I thought it was hilarious, because I mean it was spot on. But
yeah,
go for it.
For me, it's just frustrating because I've put so much energy into this news, and I'm waiting for him to make his decision, and it's just like, dude, you've had the spotlight for so long and you've overshadowed literally everything that's been big for the NFL, such as, you could talk about the Pro Bowl, you could talk about the Super Bowl, you could talk about, the most recent draft combine. Aaron Rodgers' scenario was talked about within all of these things. And he made a quote to where, he made this big long post and everybody thought that he was retiring, and he went on Pat McAfee and was like, no, nothing happened, blah blah, nothing's cryptic. And this isn't the first time that he's put out anything cryptic. This isn't, and we've went over that before and everything. And to be honest with you, after that episode, I was so sold on the idea that he was staying and he was going to be a Green Bay Packer. But my point of view is that, I mean, now hearing that, trades have been accepted and everything, and the Packers could potentially move on. Now for me, I think it relies solely on, this is the biggest domino after the draft combine. Literally everybody's eyes are on Aaron Rodgers. And I get that quote from Matt. Shout out Matt. I know he's listening. We were, on the car ride back to, back home from Indy after the combine and everything, talking about Aaron Rodgers. But it's just so frustrating knowing, like, I was so sold on it. I was so ready to just be like, dude, he's going to be a Packer next year. It's not even, it's not even a question anymore. He's just either going to sign an extension or he's just going to play for that 1 year. Ben, we talked about this prior because I sent you a tweet that said that the Packers need to do a ton of different things in order to extend DeAndre Hopkins. What am I thinking? Devontae Adams. And in order, for that to happen, they have to make like a billion different moves. And and I'm scrolling to find the tweet right now because it's very useful information. I think that it's needs to be found and discussed. So basically they said, can the Packers franchise tag Devontae Adams without a Rodgers deal? And they need to cut Zadarius Smith. They need to cut Preston Smith, Dean Lowry, Mason Crosby, Mercedes Lewis, and Randall Cobb. They need to extend Jair Alexander. They need to give Turner and Amos a max restructure. They need to tender Lazard and 8 other restricted free agents. And then they need to sign absolutely nobody else, which leaves them at $623,730 at the deadline. Now, looking at this, trying to play devil's advocate and trying to, look at this from Aaron's point of view, what about this looks attractive? Because to me, it's like we're not getting better. We're in fact, in my opinion, getting worse because we're we need to move all of this away. Trades could come into effect and the draft still needs to happen and everything, but you're not going to tell me Zadarius Smith is going to be easily replaced by a new draft prospect, especially at their draft position. There's players in the draft that can compete for that spot, and I think that they can find a starter. But the thing is like coming from Aaron Rodgers' point of view, it's like this team is not going to get any better. There are plenty of different teams that want me. I think, for example, Pittsburgh would be a better scenario. Or Tennessee. I think Tennessee would be an amazing scenario for him. He'd be going to the other side of the league, a former number 1 seed and everything, and have 2 of the league's most dominant receivers and another MVP basically, because I think Derrick Henry would have gotten MVP had he not gotten injured. I think.
Okay. No, I didn't want to interrupt you. That's a bet. No.
Are you serious?
No. Absolutely not. No. If it wasn't Aaron Rodgers, it was Cooper Kupp. And the fact that Cooper Kupp didn't get enough votes is bad. Stop. Cooper Kupp is one of the only wide receivers in the past, like literally since the league has started, to get the Triple Crown. And for those who don't know what the Triple Crown is, it's to lead the league in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and receptions. Dude put up 17,000 yards on the season. And I don't know the exact stat, but I like Henry. I love Henry, but Cooper Kupp was literally had it the second best wide receiving season ever in the history of football, literally only behind Calvin Johnson.
Bro,
and you're telling 19, he almost had 2,000 yards. He had 1947.
Dude, Derrick Henry would have been right up there, man. You can't argue that. Dude. There's literally no way.
It's crazy, and I agree with you. But it's way more crazy for a wide receiver to put up those stats than it is for a running back to put up those stats.
I don't know.
Derrick Henry is that dude. You got to think this. He's fighting, and at the end of the season, he was fighting for targets from Robert Woods pretty much the entire season until he tore his ACL. And right when Robert Woods tore his ACL, Odell came in. So this dude is fighting for targets between both of them, and that's not even including the passing downs and Tyler Higbee.
Don't even act like Cooper Kupp wasn't the number 1 option prior to Robert Woods' ACL.
And he was, and I'm not saying he was, but that's what I'm saying. He is Derrick Henry is that guy, and but there are other wide receiving options. There's 2 other wide receivers on the field. There's only 1 running back on the field.
The amount of yardage that Derrick Henry. Let me just say this one end quote. The amount of yardage that he had at the end, like right as he got injured, it was a crazy number. I mean, he was ahead of the whole running back. I mean, I don't know if the class is the right term, but like the whole running back room and the rest of the league, I mean, could not compete with Derrick Henry. I mean, he was the yardage leader. I mean, it's hard to compete with somebody that already has almost 1,000 yards within the first few weeks of the league. Like, it's ridiculous. But as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, put that aside, okay? Because I think you can at least say that Derrick Henry has an argument to be MVP, right? Like, you know, if it's not Aaron Rodgers, if it's not Cooper Kupp, if it's a healthy Derrick Henry, it's Derrick Henry, right? Like we have to agree on that. And so in order, if Aaron Rodgers were to somehow get traded to Tennessee and maintain that, that core offensive group of Julio Jones, AJ Brown, Derrick Henry, I think that would be an even better offense. And I think having two MVP candidates would just be outstanding. And so, looking at Aaron Rodgers' situation, like, why wouldn't you want to go there? I mean, why would you want to stay in Green Bay? And I mean, that could be wishful thinking. You could say that it's wishful thinking, but that's just how I'm thinking about it. So what do you think about that?
Well, to the point of all the players that you're cutting, realistically, like, even if they don't, and me and you have had this conversation, for the Packers standpoint of view, you have to do it. I mean, he's the MVP of the league. And from the Packers standpoint, like, you just don't. I mean, like, we saw in the playoffs how important like elite top end quarterbacks are, and you might. I mean, I think they'd be delusional to think this, but the Packers might think that Jordan Love could get there one day, but he won't be next season. If your goal,
and again, I'm not saying he is, but
he's a bridge quarterback.
Well, we're not gonna. Again, I think we disagree on Jordan. We'll agree to disagree on that one. But like, from the Packers standpoint of view, you have to do it. From Aaron Rodgers' standpoint of view, that's where it gets a little muddy, like you were saying, because then you're losing players that you had in this playoff run from the past year. You're keeping the same team, but you're losing players, and unless you draft well, you're a worse team than what you were this year.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to see why Aaron Rodgers wants to come back. Again, I still predict that he will, because again, the Packers will give him the most money ever. I mean, that's the report. So I think he'll come back, but that's just me.
You can't tell me that. I mean, this isn't there's no way that this isn't a win-win scenario for Bears fans. So if Aaron Rodgers stays, I'm just saying, like, I mean, because I know that people have argued this on Twitter and everything. Packers fans, I think, are the most delusional that they've been in a while. But I think,
save for Bears fans.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I can totally say that. We're very hopeful and very optimistic about our future. We have every right to be. But anyway, so I think that, as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, and, if he were to be extended, they're screwing themselves over for years to come. And they're going to prevent themselves from making that improvement for a lot of years. So, like, yeah, by all means, keep your quarterback, whatever. But if he were to leave, it's like, cool, even better. I hated the guy to begin with. So, like, cool. So anyway, Ben, do you have any closing comments about Aaron Rodgers? Because, as you know, I could go all day about this guy. I mean, he drives me up the wall, but what do you think?
Again, I'll stand by what I predicted. I think he's gonna stay. I don't think he'll win anything, but I think he'll stay, and I think he'll be the highest paid player in NFL history, at least up until the point that contract was signed.
Let me just say one thing that was brought up by our friend and listener, probably a future guest on the podcast, but
I no, it's a guaranteed future guest.
Yeah. Matt brought up a solid point when we were talking about it in the car. Aaron Rodgers, obviously he loves the spotlight on him. He's been dragging this out for years, right? I mean, his options we've talked about, it's either to retire, it's either to play with the Packers, it's to play with Denver, Pittsburgh, or Tennessee. But Matt says, what if Aaron just decides to do the most Aaron Rodgers thing and says, yeah, guys, I'm not going to play next year. I'm just going to take a break, and I'm going to take off the last year of my contract year. Do some meditating, some more enemas,
some more juice cleansing.
Yeah, some more cleansing, and think about my future, whether or not I like the retired life or whether or not I want to come back as a Packer, because he'd have all of that freedom as a free agent. So I think
Oh yeah.
he could potentially just step away from football for a year and keep the spotlight on him and just be like, so where is he going after this year? Blah, blah,
And to that point, I feel like if he steps away from football, he's just gonna retire. Because realistically, if he like comes back and he's this free agent and everything, he still will want to be the highest paid player in NFL history, and even next year. And if he wants to play for a contender is not going to be able to offer him the highest contract in. I said NBA, didn't I?
blah.
The highest paid player in NFL history, and a contender, which he's not gonna want to play for the Dolphins.
No.
So these true contending teams are not going to be able to offer him the contract he wants in free agency. The Packers are like it's just the Packers are the only team that are going to be willing to do it. If he wants to contend, it's going to have to be via trade. I think if he steps away, he's going to step away forever. But I wouldn't run it past him to retire.
Yeah.
But
And then I said that we were going to move on after that, but one last question from another listener that I held close to me. My dad said, he brought up a good question. He said, does Aaron Rodgers even have a trade or a no trade clause? And I looked it up and he does not. So at what point, if you're the Packers, do you just say, yeah, no, Aaron, we just got a phone call from Houston and they're willing to give us Deshaun Watson after his cases came up and everything, and he's all good. He's able to play and everything, and they were able to work out a deal with us. So, Aaron, you're being sent to Houston to go and mentor Davis Mills. Have fun with Brandon Cooks. Like,
that
or
that
See, but I can't, like, I understand he doesn't have a no trades clause, but he's starting to sit out before. And if he gets traded to a team he doesn't want to get traded to, he will give them a big FU and say, I'm sitting out.
he'll get traded to a team he wants, and he's not going to get traded to a Texan or something, because he would literally tell the Texans, screw you, I'm sitting out. So I just can't see that happening.
thank you for just explaining my point out to everybody that could be listening. Anyway, I'm gonna go slightly out of order here and cover who has been franchise tagged prior to this. Chris Godwin was rumored to be getting the franchise tag tomorrow. Like I said before, I think that he's gonna get franchise tagged, and David Njoku also got the franchise tag. I believe that they're working out an extension today.
Yep.
I think Austin Hooper will be traded, but that'll be a discussion for another time. Jesse Bates also got tagged today, and Orlando Brown got tagged.
For all of the players that you mentioned, maybe not Chris Godwin, we'll see, but pretty much for everybody else that you mentioned, I think it's the situation. I think they just want to keep him in house. They want to work out a long-term extension, and this allows them to. I think everybody that got franchise tagged at some point in the off season or at some point during the season this next year, they'll get their extension. They want to ensure that these guys stay in house, and I think all of them will end up getting extended. I don't think this is a Kirk Cousins situation where you just keep on franchise tagging him and not extending.
I think they want to get the extension, but they just didn't have the time to.
Somebody else that I think could potentially get franchise tagged is Mike Williams. I think that that's one of those players that needs to prove it one more year before he makes his money. So I think that that's going to be one of those players that's been rumored to go to several teams, but could potentially get the franchise tag tomorrow. But in terms of contracts and wide receivers and everything, Ben, there was a big name wide receiver that got there's rumors, I should say. It's not official, but it's basically official. Amari Cooper will be getting cut.
I would getting moved, whether that's cut or traded, he's gone. Because
he's not a Cowboy.
Rumor, so the original rumor, to Ryan's point, was that he was going to get cut, but Jerry Jones smartened up a little bit and said, why cut him if we can get something for him? So he's either going to get cut or traded. Realistically, I do think he's going to get cut. But yeah, he's just not going to be on the move.
And this kind of affects the market because I think that this opens up the door for them to sign Michael Gallup long term. And this opens up the door for them to, I think, unsmartly sign Blake Jarwin to a long term deal. If I was the Cowboys, I would franchise tag Blake Jarwin. I wouldn't give him a long term deal because he has not been productive at all until this year. And then he had like this crazy breakout year, and now he's going to want top end tight end money when he's only produced like that for 1 year. So I think they should franchise tag him rather than sign him to a long term deal. But I think you'll see both of those guys go off the market now that they're trying to get rid of Amari Cooper.
Okay, so Ben, in terms of Amari Cooper, let's say that he does get traded. Let's touch a little bit more on wide receivers. Amari Cooper, where do you think could be his potential destinations down the road?
Well, it's everybody that in the wide receiver episode. I mean, you guys should go back and listen to that if you haven't already.
Yeah, 2 episodes from now, like prior.
Yep, 2 episodes ago. Yep. I go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But for all that, but I think you need to add the Patriots and Dolphins have both been listed to have heavy interest in him. The Eagles has the Bears have as well. But the commies, the Washington Commanders, have been like not so much him, but just wide receivers as a whole has been like rumored to wanting to make a splash in free agency. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a Bears fan, I want Amari Cooper. I think it would be cool to see him, Darnell Mooney, and a rookie wide receiver, all on the same team. But I also think that, after seeing this draft class and everything in person, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of speed. And if one team can trade for Amari Cooper prior to the draft, that opens the door for one more rookie prospect to come to Chicago. So that's happy there. That's a good thing for me. And in terms of the Commanders, I think, for you, I would be terrified if Amari Cooper or a big name, insert big name receiver here went, because, you have Terry McLaurin as well that you got to deal with. So it's like, that offense could be really good depending on what
I'm not worried
quarterback that
about
they
it
picked up.
until
But
yeah, exactly. I'm not worried about it until
they get somebody competent enough to throw.
Exactly. Give me your quarterback and then we'll talk.
Mitch Trubisky. Anyway, so
then I'm really not worried.
oh man, you should be. Anyway, so we covered the franchise tags, but one last headline for this week is the combine could be moving. There's 2 other sites that are looked at, and that would be Los Angeles and that would be Las Vegas. And we'll get into our experiences.
It was the 3 contenders was
and Dallas as well.
Yeah, well, it was Indianapolis, Dallas, and LA.
Oh, Vegas wasn't.
No.
Okay. Well, that could be, these 3. Point is, it could be on the move. We both kind of expressed, I think the whole league has expressed their disinterest and disapproval in it moving away from Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis has been home to it for years. It makes the most sense for them to have it. And if this weekend has shown anything, I think that they could sell tickets, but depending on which day, but I think it should say an Indy, but I think we both are extremely biased. But what were your thoughts before we kind of transition to this past weekend?
Well, to that point, I feel like it needs to stay in Indy. And just background for everybody who doesn't know, I think it's 20-year bids at a time. I could be wrong, but it's like every 20 years or something. It's some number. It's like 20, 30, 40, something like that. Years. The contract expires to hold the combine. And Indianapolis has held that contract for the combine for literally, I mean, Lord knows how long, forever.
but that contract expires. So now again, Dallas, Indianapolis, and LA are like the three finalists um, for the bid. But I realistically, I think it stays in Indianapolis. Like you said, everybody around the league has really expressed disinterest in it going anywhere else besides Indianapolis. Indianapolis is a great place. And quite honestly, it's a very central location for all of the teams. It's something like there's 8 teams within a 5-hour drive of Indianapolis. It's Green Bay, Bears, Tennessee, the Ohio teams, um, KC. So it's a very central location versus LA and Dallas. Um, and the other thing is the NFL Network is really really trying to push the combine at like prime time. Prime time's like the afternoon. That's like 5, 6, 7 ish. And if you move that to LA, then if you do it prime time in LA, then it's really really early here. And again, since Indianapolis is a very central location, prime time is prime time everywhere versus LA prime time is really late here. So it's just I can't see it moving. But I don't know.
I think a lot of people are against it, and I think the league is going to feel the pressure. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a good time. I think I
Oh,
had a good time. Ben, why don't you tell me about your experience? Because I was only there for 2 days. I had a couple games for high school basketball that I needed to cover with Regional Radio Sports Network and IHSAA TV. But Ben, what was your experience throughout this weekend?
yeah. I was there for all 4 days. I was there with as Ryan aforementioned before, with one of my close friends, Matt. We were there for the whole 4 days. We stayed from literally the time they could let us in until literally the time they kicked us out. Um, and by the way, I not to like a little humble brag here, but I would say me and Matt were one of the only few people that could say that we were there for all of the combine from the start of each day to the end of each day for all 4 days. Um, but I had a lot of fun being able to see the prospects up close in person was really fun. Just atmosphere of it all. And it was fun to just be able to kind of like talk to the players. It wasn't having like full on conversations, but being able to talk. It was really fun. And again, being able to see all of them, we didn't miss anything during commercial break. But definitely like being there, you were able to kind of gauge the interest in the combine just as a whole. Certain days, like Ryan said, there were a lot of people there. Certain days there wasn't. Um, and it kind of just seems like unless you're really really into football, it's just something that you're not gonna like attend. And this is again an observation my friend Matt had. People were there for like an hour and then just left. But I had a great time, and again it was really fun being able to watch all of the players. But what did you think of the when you were there for the 2 days?
Oh man, yeah, I think as for Thursday was the best day to go, man. They packed the stands the whole day. There were a lot of excited fans, and one thing that I think was the most interesting was the amount of like diversity in the fans. I mean, there were people from Seattle. There were, I mean, maybe not necessarily from Seattle, but Seattle fans. And like, you know, I do want to point out there's a lot more Cincinnati Bengals bandwagons than I had seen. There's a lot of new Joe Burrow jerseys that are shiny and new that people are flaunting out and everything. I just kind of laugh at those. You see Super Bowl hats and Super Bowl shirts and everything that are
Don't
worn.
forget the Jamar Chase jerseys, by the way, too. There were a lot of those too.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've never seen a Super Bowl runner up so heavily like concentrated in terms of bandwagon fans, which Cincinnati, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think I've seen a Cincinnati fan prior to this year, but it was a lot of fun. Um, you know, But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it was a great experience. It was just something that, Thursday specifically, um, I think was the most fun just because there was a lot of different positions for you to watch. I mean, they covered tight ends and wide receivers and quarterbacks. And it was just like, man, there's a lot of talent that we're seeing today. One thing that just blew my mind was the amount of speed that I was able to witness. These people are units, man.
I
Like,
uh, we'll get to it because I'm sure you're gonna touch on it. But there was one gripe I had about Thursday specifically that really grinds my gears. But continue. I'll get to it. But oh,
so what people see, and one thing that Ben and I were able to experience together, one thing that I was I'm not gonna lie, I was a little scared to ask and everything too. But there's this little mini basketball hoop that normally are for kids or whatever, and they have these new professional athletes go and try and shoot a ball and see how many baskets that they can make after their interviews. And we were able to get a couple shots up from the stands. Ben being able to make one, and I can provide that clip in the video because I did get that on recording. Um, you know, and so on top of that, I was able to shoot as well. We got both of our shots later on camera. I want to just say props to the NFL Network crew for being so down to earth and just like willing to help out fans and everything.
oh yeah,
Because in terms of security and everything, screw those people, man.
they
Like,
were jerks.
with the exception of the people at the top of the rows and everything that were really cool, like there were people, let me just kind of explain for people that weren't able to make it to the combine. So like what happens was you like walked in and there were certain barricades to where you would walk and just kind of direct you to like the right side of the stadium, kind of right above where the players would run out of on the visiting side of the stadium. And so basically what they would do is just be like, yeah, like here's a little earpiece, which I thought was awesome how they set that up, by the way. Their earpieces you'd hook it up to your ear and then you turn up the volume to whatever volume you're comfortable to. And basically it would be a live feed from NFL Network directly upstairs, which is right behind us, where they ended up sitting us. And so basically they had like half of the stadium blocked off, or more than half the stadium, I should say. But about a quarter of the stadium was used just for fan seating. And so, they just kind of filled the rows and everything. And by section, there was a security guy that was able to direct you to a certain spot. And with those people, they were super down to earth, super cool, pretty lenient. But in terms of just security, for the players and everything, screw those
Jerks.
people, man. At the end of the day, you see a 9-year-old with a tiny little helmet and everything. He's not able to stretch across 3 rows to go and give it to a professional player that's willing to sign it for them. And I mean, the number one thing that people could say is just like, oh, well, what about COVID restrictions and stuff? Well, here's the thing. Prior to the combine, they got rid of COVID restrictions altogether. They suspended them indefinitely, effective immediately, and those things weren't necessarily a problem. Like literally, proof of vaccination wasn't a thing. Proof of a negative COVID test wasn't a thing. Masks weren't required. That might just be due to state regulations and everything in the state of Indiana, because I know Indiana is pretty passionate about all of that stuff not being a thing. Whereas like, I don't know, somewhere like Chicago would definitely have that stuff locked down. But all of that put into consideration, though, when you have a couple sections that are roped off, for camera angles or for the TV screens that they had set up at each section, I think if a kid needs an autograph, and he's meeting a player that could potentially inspire the next role, the next group of NFL superstars, it's like these kids came here not because they love football and they want to take notes like we did, but more so they want to see and meet the players that are going to be drafted in a month. And you're taking that away if you're that jerk security guard that's like, oh, you need to get back to your section, blah, blah, blah. Like, if the NFL Network people on the field have literally no issue with you interacting with the players or the security
Well,
people
and the
on the field,
players.
yeah, if the players have literally no problem with it, why be the stickler about it? And I
Yeah.
understand, like, if literally everybody from everywhere else is like just gathering at this one section because of this one player, let me tell you, the players don't have time for that. They'll sign the kids' stuff and go away. So it all just depends on situation and everything, but like at the end of the day, why be a jerk? That'll ruin some kids' experience
Yeah.
with it. But at the end of Thursday too, in terms of interaction and everything, I think it's really cool. Because I met my childhood nemesis, Mike McCarthy, at the end of it, and I swear up and down that I saw Kevin Stefanski. Ben will say that I saw a Washington Commanders coach.
Ryan would, or not Ryan. Matt would also say that he didn't see him as well, but
We could see a different person. I don't know, but for me and Browns fans everywhere, which we might get into next week. Stay tuned. Um, I just want to say you can't miss Kevin Stefanski once he walks by. It's just one of those guys that's just like the facial expression and the features and everything looks like the dude, he looked like the villain from Lazy
yeah,
Town, bro.
no, I got you. I didn't see him, but continue to your nemesis point.
So I was like, we go out the coach's exit and everything, which was on floor level right outside of the suite elevator. Suite not being SWEET,
Well,
but
at the time, the coaches exit, because I think we changed the rules.
yeah,
But
and
continue.
I'll get into that. So I walked through where the coaches and the staff are exiting, and Ben turns to me and he goes, "Dude, you just walked past Mike McCarthy." And I was like, "What?" And I'm like opening the door and everything, and Matt and Ben walk out behind me, and I turn to my left and I see Mike McCarthy talking to some random dude. And he's just talking to him like he was like a normal friend, blah blah. So I'm like, okay, I'll stand here and I'll hold the door open for Mike McCarthy. It's a nice gesture. It's not weird. So I did
He
and
was weird.
everything. And I was just like, hey, Mike, you mind if I get a picture? I know you got someplace to be. And he was like, yeah, no problem. I'll attach the picture in the video like I did before. But Mike McCarthy was really cool. Unfortunately, I said, "Hey man, look, I'm a crazy Bears fan, longtime Bears fan, and basically, you kicked the crap out of my team for years." And he goes, "Dude," and I quote, "I am so sorry about that." Now, for me, longtime Bears fan, what do you respond to that sentence? Like, you said you're sorry for that, and I mean, apparently he turned and winked to you guys when he said that, right?
Well, yeah. Then Matt was holding open the door to him, and just out of nowhere, he turned and winked and smiled at Matt, and then just walked away. And I'm like, that's a
Yeah.
bit weird. This is just a weird guy.
So we exited the building and everything, and I was like, nah, it's all good, blah blah, as if it was all good. And I was just like, all right. And he goes, well, have a great night, and I was like, yeah, it was good meeting you, man, good luck next season. And I walked away and I turned to Matt and Ben and I was just like, dude, screw that guy. I mean,
Why do you have to be so nice?
yeah, like at the end of the day, coming from a Bears fan's perspective, and I don't know if there's a rivalry that you can compare to this situation. I guess if there's any Jets fans listening, imagine meeting Bill Belichick and Bill Belichick being really freaking nice to you. And saying I'm sorry for beating your team that much, even though he might not be, but it's a polite thing to say. Like,
Well, as an Eagles fan, if Mike McCarthy said the same thing to me, I'd be kind of mad too. Because for anybody who doesn't know, Mike McCarthy is the Cowboys head coach.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, so it's like, all right, so we walk back to the car and I'm just like, screw that guy. Like, he's supposed to be mean. He's supposed to fit that Packers role of like just straight up jerks, the reputation of the I own you version of Aaron Rodgers, and not the charity players and everything that are on the Packers organization and everything. We don't think about those. We think about the jerks. Like, screw that guy. So looking back at it now, I wish I would have told him, yeah, it's no problem. Just don't run it when there's 14 seconds left in the game. But I should have just trash talked that playoff loss to the 49ers. But at the end of the day, he was a really cool guy. I respect him and what he's done. Unfortunately, I mean, it sucks coming from a Bears fan's perspective, but like at the end of the day, that guy's pretty cool. And the fact that he was polite to a fan and everything was awesome. And when it comes down to it, Ben, you said that the exit was kind of like either blocked off or they like kind of shoot you out of the stadium quicker after that day, right?
Yeah. So after that day, again, I was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was there the whole day. That happened on Thursday. Yeah, Friday, Saturday. Friday they just didn't really let us go out that exit. Saturday, just literally nobody came out there, and then Sunday, no, we went out that exit and nobody was there again. We waited outside for like 35 minutes for Ryan to meet Lovie Smith.
And
That
it didn't
never
happen.
happened either. Yeah.
I have an unsigned Bears helmet and it's just sitting here just so depressing. Anyway, yeah, so at the end of the day, and I told Matt and Noah, shout out to Noah.
Yeah.
Noah was there for Sunday.
Sunday.
Glad he could come as well. Um, I told him, yeah, you know what? Like, screw Mike McCarthy again. Like, I guarantee you, somebody, either the staff or somebody, saw that they were talking to a fan and they decided to lock that down. And I think Mike McCarthy had something to do with it in terms of, hey, there was this freaking weird Bears fan talking to me late last night. Think we got to, just kind of shut down security and everything. So I was like, well, probably Mike McCarthy's fault. Blame Mike McCarthy when in doubt. Yeah, screw Mike McCarthy. Ben, you were talking to me about, draft prospects and everything and how there were some risers and fallers. Now, why don't you talk to us about what these risers and fallers are? I'll take a break and get my notes in after you're finished.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that was one of the cool parts about again going to the combine is, when you watch it on TV, they like show like all the known players and everything, and they kind of cut out all the unknown 6th, 7th round picks. But being in there, you could see everything. And I knew who most of them were, but obviously I'm not going to know everybody. And I had a little notebook and I saw it. So it was really cool to being able to see these. And I have lots of risers and lots of fallers. But I'm just going to talk, at least in this episode, I'm going to talk about the risers that I don't think we're going to draft in the draft episode that comes out along with this. If you want to hear the risers that will be drafted, go to the mock draft episode. I will talk about it there. But as for the players that I don't think are well known that did rise, and we'll go in order from day to day. One of my favorite prospects that not everybody really knew about was Cole Kelly. He's a huge quarterback, like 6'7", out of Southern Louisiana. He's a rocket arm, and he did really good. I enjoyed seeing him. It was lots and lots of fun to see him. I think he went from an undrafted free agent to maybe a 6th or 7th round pick. We'll get to Ritter. Ritter was a riser, as sad as that is for me to say. Jelani Walker, though, he was one of the biggest risers of me throughout the entire combine. Jelani Walker, he's a tight end out of University of Virginia. I mean, dude's huge. He's 6'7". He ran 4.6 and put up the most benches out of anybody in tight end room. I didn't realize, I didn't even know who he was until then. Huge riser. I mean, he's really sticking off. If you want to take a chance at the tight end position in like the 3rd-ish round, why not draft a very strong, fast, tall tight end? I mean, that's what you're looking for. Another one, I'm gonna butcher his name, so we're just gonna just say his first nickname, Chig, the tight end out of Maryland. He ended up running like a 4.5. I mean, it's very, very fast. He's the fastest tight end runner. And just as for tight ends as a whole, everybody's getting faster and faster and faster. And as you see guys like Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews and Darren Waller kind of emerge as these kind of number one wide receiving options, you're seeing that translate as well into the draft with a lot of these guys running faster and everything and catching balls better. But Chiggin, Jelani Walker are big two tight end risers. We'll get to these three tight ends or these three wide receivers mock draft episode, but Christian Watson, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson were all risers for me. As for the offensive line and running back day, Cam Jurgens, the offensive lineman out of Nebraska, he tested really athletic. He was just fun because he makes his own beef jerky. So everybody on the announcing crew kept on calling him Beef Jurgens instead of beef jerky. So it was just fun, but he tested really well. And same for this small school prospect, Braxton Jones. He went to Southern Utah. I mean, he really, really tested well. I mean, might have been the best tester out of any of that offensive line group. He tested phenomenally. And then another one who tested well should come as no shock to anybody. Zion Johnson. We'll get to him in the mock draft episode as well. Charles Cross, he tested well. We'll get to him in the mock draft. And then Rashad White, the running back out of Arizona, shocked me. I know Matt kind of knew him before, and he shocked the both of us. And then Isaiah Pacheco, the running back out of Rutgers as well, performed really, really well in pass catching drills and running. He did good. As for defense, basically, if you went to Georgia, you rose your stock in the combine. Everybody, Wyatt performed well. Jordan Davis is a monster. We'll get to him. Trayvon Walker performed really well. Lewis Sign, he tested way better, more so in the 40. He ran way better than what I thought. We'll get to those guys in the mock draft episode as well. But as for linebacker, one of the three guys who really stood out to me was Troy Anderson, the linebacker out of Montana State. He's a really interesting story because he started out as a quarterback there, and then he moved to running back, and then he moved to linebacker. So we all knew he was going to test well, but it's more so in the on the field drills. He performed way better than what people thought. I think he really rose his draft stock from like a late day 3 guy to an early day 3 guy, late day 2. And then Quay Walker, again, if you went to Georgia, you rose your draft stock. Quay Walker tested well, but Tyndall, we all knew he was going to test well, but Channing Tyndall tested really, really well. I have to bump him up into my top 5 linebackers this class. And as for fallers, Sam Howell, the ball just seemed on the field drills. The ball just seemed that it was just coming off of his hand very, very slow. The more I watch Sam Howell, the more I kind of get lower on him. Darian Kennard, the offensive lineman out of Kentucky, tested terrible. Like, we thought he was going to be athletic, and that just was not at all what we saw. Same can go for DeMarvin Leal. And as for everybody, I think DeMarvin Leal, from the start of the college season to now, stock has probably dropped the most out of any prospect I can think of. This dude was viewed as a top 10 guy and probably won't even go within the top 2 rounds. So his stock has fallen just really, really bad. And then for the last guy, Myjai Sanders, edge rusher out of Cincinnati. He weighed 221 pounds, which is the lowest out of any edge rusher ever in the history of the combine. It did come out that he had an illness That's kind of what he was suffering from. But kind of the book on him is he does really well translating his speed to power. We kind of knew he was going to come in small, but 221 is so small. And you didn't really in the on the field drills, you didn't see the speed to power translate really well. And he the ongoing joke between me and Matt is the one thing you can expect today is Myjai Sanders falling down in every single drill. Myjai Sanders fell down. He really, really hurt himself. And I don't want to go as far as to say that these guys are fallers, but it was really a shame that Kayvon Thibodeau didn't test. He just did the 40 and then didn't do anything else. And I wouldn't really shock me if that's what he did. But he told all the NFL teams that he was going to test and that he was going to do everything. But then kind of at the last minute backed out, which was not smart because you got to think how that looks for these NFL organizations and everything. And then it was a shame that Nakobe Dean didn't test. I think he could have benefited this. And I think now that he didn't test, I think Devin Lloyd has firmly supplanted him as the number one linebacker in this class. And then George Karlaftis didn't run the 40, which was also a shame. But those three guys, I wouldn't say are fallers, but just kind of a shame. Just a little disappointed, I would say. But what do you have to say about the 2 days that you saw?
Yeah, so for me, and I think that it's important to note that I was only able to see the tight ends, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and then defensive backs. Also the kickers as well. I mean, everybody saw just as much as I did, just because of, special teams wasn't available to the public. Unfortunately, I could have had 2.5 more hours of sleep that morning, but I guess I didn't look at the sign. But anyway, as for tight ends that impressed me, so Greg Dulcich is one of those people that I thought was pretty good. There's a lot of them actually, and I'm gonna actually there's a few that I guess aren't necessarily big names, I don't think. So I'm pretty sure you hit on all the big ones, and if I mispronounce their name, that's why. But these impressed me. Cole Turner was pretty good too. I thought Grant Calcaterra, I want to say is his name. He was pretty good. State. Yeah. Connor Hayward was also pretty good, but then one name that I guess I can see being a late round pick.
You were all over this guy.
Jeremiah Hall is, I mean, I don't know what it was, but about him, when I watched him, I was like, he has this presence to me that was just like, although he had a bad, like, he was one of the last ranked tight ends, according to NFL.com. But Jeremiah Hall wasn't one of those guys to me. I think that he has potential to be a solid backup, in my opinion, for right now. I think that he can compete further down the road, but as of right now, he needs to be coached by an NFL coach, and I think that he'll get that opportunity and he'll get a spot on a roster, but it won't be like an early round tight end that you'll see. Chig, I think, his 40 time was impressive. In terms of the catching drills and everything, I've seen literally every website say that his stock rose, but to be honest with you, I feel like other tight ends were more impressive to me than Chig. Nothing necessarily stood out to me like a few others did. And then Peyton Hendershot didn't really impress me too much. I think that there was a little bit too much hype surrounding him, even though it's not too much, but I think there was too much in terms of what he came in and did. And then as for quarterbacks, only two. Oh, wait, no, that's not right, because there's two groups that performed, and only two quarterbacks ran 40 times in the first group. And so originally I was like, womp, 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 like that's not good. Sam Howell, he's one of those guys that I was like, man, like I'm excited to see him and everything. And I was like, oh, okay. So he's only basically doing throwing drills. Like this guy hardly did any drills. And for that, I was like, you're not impressing me. And then Skylar Thompson didn't impress me either. But and I know that you're gonna hate me for this, but Desmond Ritter was like, wow. Like, I mean, he was just wow. Like,
we'll talk about him. I don't hate you for that. I agree with that. We'll
I mean,
talk
he
about
put
him in
on
the
a
mock draft
show.
episode. He did.
Malik Willis did too. I think he impressed me. I don't think either guy is gonna be like that standout, holy crap, this guy's amazing type deal like, last year's quarterbacks were. Matt Corral was a guy that we were able to see up close and personal, but he didn't really perform. I don't think he performed at all, did he?
Yeah, no, he didn't do any of the drills.
Which was disappointing for me.
Well, he was recovering from an injury.
Right. I'm just saying, like, it's disappointing not to be able to see him when you're at the scouting combine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, meh, all right. But like his stock didn't rise or fall. But I think in terms of quarterback play, you need to have that kind of confidence and almost like the swagger when you're in the presence of this player. And he had that with his interview, with how he talked to people off camera, and just it was just he had that confidence. And that's one thing.
Charisma. That's the best word I can use to describe him. He
Yeah.
has the charisma.
Yeah. And I mean, that gives me another chance, the other opportunity. If you've listened to this podcast prior, you know that I can find literally any opportunity to talk about my guy Justin Fields. And I'm just going to say Matt Corral had the confidence that reminds me of Justin Fields, even though the play style is not even close to similar. But it's more so the confidence is so straightforward that it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
I get what you're saying. Again, you haven't watched Matt Corral, so I'm not gonna knock you for it. I disagree with that second statement. I think Justin Fields has more of a running style than Matt Corral does.
Yeah, that's
but
what I'm
playing
saying.
style, but playing style, I think Justin Fields does run it a little bit more than Matt Corral. But I would say that honestly, I would say their playing styles are fairly similar. Both have strong arms. Both struggle with ball placement and accuracy. But you don't question how big their arms are, and both can run and keep the play alive, and can run after. I would say their playing styles are actually fairly similar. Not to trash on you.
Well, no. And definitely thank you for correcting me. But I definitely think in terms of like agility and speed and everything, though, we can at least agree on that part, which is kind of what I was trying to hit on, but not so much in terms of a strong arm. Because I know like literally the whole weekend you were like, dude, yeah, Matt Corral's arm, like he's got this big arm that was, so it's like, yeah, no, by all means, I totally agree with that. So yeah, no, but going back to the confidence and everything, that's extremely crucial in terms of your quarterback. Because if you don't have a confident quarterback, you're gonna wind up with an offense that was similar to like, I don't know, Mitch Trubisky.
Well, look at how it affected Carson Wentz this year.
Yeah,
Carson Wentz just didn't have it, and it showed. I mean, it showed.
Yeah. In terms of wide receivers, though, Treylon Burks was like, holy crap, this kid is awesome. Jahan Dotson was one of those guys too for me. I was just like, wow. I mean, I think that he could be one of those late first round picks that could be like, I think that he could fall around, I think 20 and back, no further than 20 on the first round. I think 20 and on is his range to fall. But because of how many receivers there are that are so quick and so, I mean, just impressive, that could change. Sky Moore ran an impressive 30. And I think that he has a lot of potential as well. In terms of his catching drills and everything, I was just amazed by that. Velus Jones Jr. also had a pretty impressive 40-yard dash. I think speed can go a long way, but in terms of receiver play and everything, I think he's also got some potential, and I'm just going to stop saying that altogether because all of these guys that I have written down have the potential. I didn't write down anybody that didn't impress me because I mean, the whole wide receiver class, the speed, agility, and the hands and everything, you're gonna have drops. I mean, as a receiver, as a defensive back, for me, I know you're gonna have drops, especially in one of the most high pressure practices you'll probably ever have. Um, Bo Melton was one of those guys. For me, I was like, wow, okay, I'm excited to see what this guy can do. He's going to be one of those guys that I think can be taken in the second or third rounds, but I think he's going to be a steal. Calvin Austin III was also one of those guys that I was like, huh, all right, let's see what he can do. One guy that I haven't mentioned that you're probably completely shocked that I haven't mentioned, the speedy fast guy, Chris Olave. Wow, Chris Olave. I mean, and I know I'm
In
Ohio State fan and everything, and I've seen this man play for the last couple of years. And I still stand by the whole thing as like, if the Bears take him, I'm being ecstatic and everything, but at the same time, it's not going to be like the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase type deal, as much as people want to write that narrative and say that it is. But I think, as far as the Chris Olave thing, man, he's going to be so good, and I'm looking forward to seeing it just as an Ohio State fan. Like, and I'll relate to this to the basketball, which, by the way, there's an awesome podcast called Hooper's Haven. If you haven't checked it out yet, go check it out. I think I'm a Kentucky basketball fan, and in terms of like,
or
let's just
you a
relate it.
Notre Dame basketball fan. Continue though.
What he's
If
saying,
you know, if you know, you know.
yeah. What he's saying, basically, I went to a Notre Dame game and I bought a Notre Dame shirt, and he gives me crap because, we will argue that in another episode. But
Yeah. Yep.
I really like Tyrese Maxey from Kentucky when he played basketball
baby.
there. And as a Heat fan, I freaking hate how he went to an Eastern Conference team, because now I got to root against him. But I wish the best for him. I think if the Sixers make it to the finals this year, which is they have a decent chance. And this is really the only basketball I'll ever talk on this podcast, but I totally root for Tyrese Maxey. I definitely think that, like, oh man, I definitely want him to be, get a ring, and he's a key role player. But relating that to football, I think Chris Olave, being from Ohio State, no matter where he goes, unless it's like the Packers or something, I think I would really, really hope that he gets somewhere and succeeds in that place. I lied. I guess there is one player that underwhelmed me. I'm very high on this guy still. I think that he has a lot of potential. If Chicago can take him, that's cool, but I definitely think his draft stock lowered. David Bell. And the Boilermaker had a very unimpressive day at the scouting combine on Thursday. And I mean, literally every news outlet is like bashing him because he did like awful.
Well, all right. So a few points based off of what you said. I will start with David Bell. He was disappointing. For those who don't know what RAS scores are, that's relative athletic score. That's what RAS stands for. He tested like terrible in his RAS. RAS basically just adds up like your vert, your 3-cone, your broad, your like all the athletic testing you do, and compares it to everybody else. He tested terrible in pretty much everything. He ended up having 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. He ended up having like a 3.62 RAS score, which is not good. To your tight ends, I agree with pretty much everything you said about tight end. For me as a whole, I thought I was high on Greg Dulcich going in, but I came out of that day being lower on Greg Dulcich, just because they were trying to push the Greg Dulcich narrative a little too much. He, for some reason, people are saying he's the number 1 tight end in the class, which is just dead wrong. He's not even, you could maybe say 3, but he's coming out as a faller for me just because everybody else for some reason has him ranked at like 1, which is wrong. And when it comes to tight end groups, the only faller I have is Jalen Watermeyer. I totally forgot about him. He lacked effort. He just seemed like he didn't want to be there.
Like he didn't perform bad or anything. He just seemed like he didn't want to be there. And then to Ryan's point, everybody's running really fast at the combine. And this was the thing that really, really irked me about day one. The dude who was for people that don't know, like the unofficial versus official time, there's lasers on the field as they run the 40 to like see what like their time to like the millisecond is. And that takes time to compute and kind of get through the system. So we don't know what that official time is for about an hour or so. So NFL Network has like some dude timing the actual 40s and timing the actual 40s, and he just like he was terrible. Like he was like doing it way higher. Like at one point we thought that like the 40-yard dash record was broken. And we thought Velus Jones ran a 4.21 and ended up running a 4.29. And Chris Olave was, they were saying he ran a 4.26 and ended up running a 4.39, which at the end of the day is still really fast. And this wide receiver class is the fastest wide receiver class we've had since '03, I think. So everybody ran really fast, but the stopwatch guy was aggravating as hell. But what did you think about the other day?
I just want to say really quick, I think this is this like fastest draft class we've ever had.
It is.
But and after, on day 4 when I went, the defensive backs that just kind of shouted out to me. I have Tariq Woolen. He was pretty good. Jalen Armour Davis was pretty good too. I like to see him. Kalon Barnes was awesome for me. Kaiir Elam was another one of those guys where I was like, all right, cool. The top things that I'd like to really hit on. So for Sauce Gardner, he had a lot of hype going in. Literally everybody that was there wanted to see Sauce. And by the way, really cool guy. Shout out to Matt for getting his autograph. And by the way, shout out to Sauce for signing some kids stuff. That's really cool too. But in terms of the, he had composure issues and stuff like that. And I think, I always say that he has some crazy legs, because his legs were all over the place and he was looking like he was running on stilts. But in terms of, just those guys, those were really the people that, impressed me. I think one guy too, I think Josh Thompson impressed me, because he was recovering from a broken fibula. And I was just like, wow, Josh Thompson, pretty cool. Jacoby Durant was also one of those guys. He has great acceleration transition from, moving forward and moving sideways and stuff. And then Kobe Bryant was all right as well. So, that's how, and I'll be honest with you. I didn't really pay too much attention. I was just trying to enjoy myself. We had a big group of friends there and everything. We just wanted to watch some guys. So, I didn't really write down too much, but overall, it was a fun time, and I'm glad that we were able to go.
But like you said, it was a lot of fun. That last day, we it was just more about having fun. But my big thing coming out of this is again Georgia. If you went to Georgia, your draft stock rose. If unless you're Nakobe Dean, but your draft stock didn't get hurt. But I can now further push my narrative that Tyreek Woolen and Christian Watson are amazing. Both of those guys, performed wonderfully at the combine. Christian Watson, I talked about Raz, ended up with like a 9.98 Raz score. Dude tested, I think he like officially ran like a 3.32,
Okay.
3.34, something like that. So he ended up running way faster than what people thought. And same Woolen ran a 2.26. So
Yeah.
I'm able to push that agenda even more, which you guys better watch it. If you guys thought I was high on these guys before, you hold your butterscotches, because I'm gonna be higher on them even more now.
So moving on now, we have we're gonna try and rush through these just a little bit because we have a lot to cover.
Mhm. Oh shoot,
So
I forgot. Yeah.
so we have offensive linemen and defensive linemen. More than half the league needs these positions. So Ben, why don't you tell us about the 5 guys that we have slated for the offensive line?
Um. The first guy,
Tron Armstead.
yeah, there you go. He played for the Saints. I don't think he's like officially a free agency. Um, maybe he is. Maybe they cut him, but he played for the Saints and he's been playing at a very high level. Anybody who is able to get him is going to be very, very happy. He is one heck of a tackle.
Okay. Ryan Jensen, which by the way, I really want to come to Chicago, and I think he's got a real chance of going to Chicago. But what do you think?
Like you said, he's performed. He's been an above average center for most of his career. I'm pretty sure he's 30 right now. Don't quote me on that though. He's been above average center for most of his career. But he really put himself on the map. It was perfect timing for him to perform. Arguably an all pro level this year. He's played very, very well.
For Brandon Scherf?
Um, this is where it gets tricky because he's been an all pro. And he plays at an all pro level. Very good, but he can't stay healthy. So do you take the risk on it? And we'll end up seeing what his contract is. And that'll really determine if I like it or not. Because again, if he can stay healthy, he's an all pro talent. He has very injury prone. I doubt he stays with Washington.
Okay. And then Lincoln Tomlinson.
Not a lot of people know about this guy for some reason, which is kind of sad. But he's one of the best guards in our league. He played for the 49ers for the past couple seasons. He's also 30. We don't really have a lot of young guys hitting free agency as linemen. That's no shocker because usually if you're a good offensive lineman and you're young, teams try to keep you. This guy's 30. Guys don't talk about it enough, but again, he's right up there with Brandon Sheriff. He plays some really good football, and I mean, as you see, he's one heck of a run blocker.
And then Dwayne Brown will round off the offensive lineman.
This guy used to be, I don't want to say used to be, but for a very long time, one of the best tackles in the league. But he's getting old. I think he's 38 now. So I think you see a very short deal with him. I don't think he gets a long-term deal at all. He's not playing at the level he used to be, but I think you could see him play a little bit better than what Jason Peters did for the Bears this year.
Which the bar is not very high, but
without the penalties, he doesn't have the penalty issues.
Starting off with our defensive lineman, please let me just have my moment with Akeem here.
Go for it, dude.
With all due respect, Mr. Hicks, I love you, buddy. Thank you so much for your time in Chicago, but you're not staying. At the end of the day, you're not staying, and the reason why is not because we don't want you, not because you don't want to be a Bear. I do strongly believe that he wants to end his career in Chicago. So with that, I think there's a small chance that he stays, but because of the contract issues and the negotiations not being, the contract situation, the cap situation not being compatible with Akeem, I think that it's just not meant to be. I don't know where he'll go. I've said this before. I think there's a chance that he goes to the Saints if the Saints can figure out their cap situation, just because that's where he started out and everything. And he's got some friends over there. The chemistry's already established. I think you could go there on a short-term deal. But moving on.
Where'd you say?
I think Akeem could go to the Saints if hold on a minute, if they figure out their cap situation enough to bear they can afford him. Just because the chemistry's already established and everything, I think that it would make sense for him, but that's only if the Saints can figure out the cap situation, which is very, very tough in itself.
I mean, negative like $45 million in cap right now.
Plus, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna. It'd be so hard to figure out. I think for the Saints, we talked about Marcus Williams and the safety. That was last episode. Yeah,
Yes.
that was
Yes.
last episode. We talked about him. I think their main goal is to just honestly try to keep him. I can't foresee the Saints clearing that much cap, but if they
Yeah.
do, I mean, again, like you said, if they do, it would be
It would make
awesome to see him
sense.
reunited there. Oh yeah.
In all honesty though, I hope to God that he does go to a contender. I hope that he goes somewhere to compete for a Super Bowl because that's where he wanted to be in Chicago. I mean, the man is a bear. Like the man
Yeah.
will always be a bear. But
Quite
moving
literally.
on, Calais Campbell, what do you think about him?
Again, he had very few. I wouldn't say very few. He had a long stretch actually of being one of the most dominant interior defensive line. He's played well. He fits. He fits a couple different schemes. He could be a 3-4 defensive end or a 4-3 tackle. So he fits a whole lot of schemes. He's no longer the Calais Campbell that we all know and love from the Saxonville Jaguars.
Mhm.
That was fun because he really did lead that Jaguars defense again. I mean, their defense was literally known as Saxonville. I still think you can get a solid baseline production from him.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of interior defensive linemen in this class. So I think these two guys would probably get higher money this year than in other classes.
Yeah. Chandler Jones. This one's interesting.
Yeah. So now we've switched. So the first two guys were interior defensive linemen. Now we switched over to edge here. And the next guy is really interesting, but believe me, you'll get to that. Chandler Jones, again, he's when he's on the field and when he's healthy, he's one of the best edge defenders in the league, and he was one of the best edge defenders in the league this year. But he too is also getting old. So do you want to sign him to this long-term contract? I wouldn't. I would sign him to like a 2-year, maybe 3-year, but 3 years really pushing it. But I mean, he's still. It's not a matter of production because again, this year he's put up the production. He's performed very well. It's just a matter of at what point will the age catch up to him? It hasn't yet. So it's really just how confident you are that you can keep him at the production he's at right now.
He's one of those players that I would be interested to see what his contract situation would be like and what his value is. Mainly because if he's cheaper than Akeem Hicks, which I doubt it, but if he is, I would be very, very interested in him if I'm Chicago, mainly because of the production that he was able to put up within the first few weeks of last season. The sack numbers were very high given, the first, I think, 5 weeks of the season, but throw him in with Robert Quinn, who just set the sack record with Chicago, and then a healthy Khalil Mack on the other side. That would give me chills. But given the fact that it's not necessarily a huge need for Chicago, I wouldn't expect that to be like the first move that they make, unless Matt Eberflus makes that something that they they would want. But for Von Miller, I think he has a strong chance of going back to Denver, given his recent social media posts of him, I wonder if they'll give me back my old locker, or stuff like that. I think
should I
at
wear
the end of the
40
day
or 58?
Yeah. I think either it's just blatantly obvious that he wants to go back, or he's using that for contract leverage with negotiations for the Rams. Who knows? It's probably Denver. I think it would make sense for him to go to Denver. Go for it.
Yeah, I think he's going back to Denver. And I think that was kind of the expectations when they traded him this year. I think it was we'll let you go and win this chip. You got the chip he wanted, the championship he wanted. Now come back to Denver. I think that was kind of, at least organizationally wise, And Von Miller wise, I think that was, yeah, I think that was kind of the expectation.
A listener just sent to me a tweet from Calvin Ridley saying, "I know I was wrong, but I'm getting 1 year. LOL." So
Was that
like,
Matt?
no, that was actually my dad.
Oh,
I
well,
will
there you go.
say,
Oh,
I will say, one thing that I didn't really touch on is the league needs to freaking figure out their punishments, because it makes zero sense in terms of, you beat your wife, you get a few weeks off. You gamble on some games, you get the full year off. Like what?
well, it's because it's about like holding the, well, obviously this is gonna sound bad because beating your wife isn't holding up the integrity of the NFL either. But it's about holding up the integrity of the NFL, and you can't have these players betting because it looks bad. Because, well, it might have just been sports betting and gambling.
Yeah.
Like, what is like? Does this guy know stuff? Is he swinging? Which he wasn't. Is
No,
he swinging the outcomes of these games? And it just looks
it's a
bad.
bad look. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I would say that it doesn't look as bad as like Kareem Hunt's situation though.
yeah.
Or not Kareem Hunt. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess Kareem
Well,
Hunt. I was
that
gonna
too.
say Alvin Kamara. But anyway, so moving on to the more interesting position. Cordero Patterson, the running back. I just didn't announce the running back position for whatever reason. Yeah, we're going over running backs now. Cordero Patterson. That's interesting. Where do you think he's staying with Atlanta? Do you think he's going somewhere? If so, where would he be
All right,
going?
real quick, I'll touch on Cordero Patterson. Emmanuel Agba, defensive end, Miami. I like him. Think he's gonna stay in Miami, but if he goes somewhere else, he's a name to
Oh
watch.
yes.
Not a lot of people know Emmanuel Agba for some reason. But just remember the name. As for Cordell Patterson, he's interesting because I mean, you as a Bears fan, I mean, you know it. He's more of he's a gadget guy. And he really has been bouncing over or across teams really since he's been drafted. And he was kind of really viewed as more of a return guy and a wide receiver until he got to Chicago. And that's one thing Matt Nagy kind of wisened up and said, "Hey, we can use this guy in the backfield," um, which really kind of helped his career. But then he fit kind of this perfect hole within this Falcons offense, and where he could be a running back, where he could be a wide receiver, where he can do everything, which has really helped his draft or his free agency value and his stock. I can't really see him performing this high if he goes anywhere else. I think there's, as in terms for him, it would be smart for him to just stay in Atlanta. It's a scheme and system that fits him. There's not a lot of schemes and systems in the NFL that fit him. I think he should just stay.
One thing that I forgot to touch on, completely unrelated to the running back class, but this is another headline that I think is worth noting, not just because it's a former player, but because I think it's hilarious. On Sunday, April 3rd, former Colts punter Pat McAfee will be performing in ring at WWE's annual pay-per-view WrestleMania in a one-on-one match against a wrestler named Austin Theory. I'll be watching WrestleMania. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I think that that's hilarious. I hope that Pat McAfee wins, but I doubt it. Anyway, putting that aside, Leonard Fournette is the next running back in the free agent class, and I don't think that he's actually going to stay. So, Ben, we gonna argue this, or do you agree?
No, I agree. They don't have the money.
They don't have the money, and honestly, I feel like it all depends on Ryan Jensen and seeing where he goes as well. Understanding that they're going to use the franchise tag on Chris Godwin, that's a big hit to their offensive line. And Leonard Fournette, who's also getting up there in age, I believe. I think he's later 20s. That's older for a running back. And I think that he'll sign a cheap deal with one of the teams that we'll list later. But
6-ish million, I would say.
yeah, it's not an expensive deal, but it's something to get. in a running back room. So moving on to, I'm just gonna group these two together. James Conner and Chase Edmonds, both Cardinals. Where do you think one of them's gonna stay? Do you think both of them's gonna stay? Do you think both of them are leaving? I got a bold take for them.
One of them has to stay. I mean, I don't quite know what the Cardinals cap situation looks like, but letting them both walk would just would not be a good idea, because then running back would really, unless they plan on drafting. Wow, I didn't talk about this. Unless they plan on drafting Brees Hall or Kenny Walker, they
Brees
have
Hall.
to sign one of them.
Tell us about Brees Hall.
Yeah. We're gonna make this really, really quick, because I know this is already getting long. But on day 2, was again, like Ryan said, it was running back in O-line. We sat behind Brees Hall's family. They were awesome people. We talked to them. Throughout the day. They were awesome, very sweet people. Very, very lucky to have a family as sweet as his.
And I'm very, very jealous that I couldn't be a part of that group, because I hear that they are great people as well.
Yeah, they were awesome people.
But
yeah, they have to re-sign one. The Cardinals have to re-sign one of these backs, unless they plan on drafting either Kenny Walker or Brees Hall.
I will say running back is one of those top needs for this team. I think James Conner is going to be the guy to stay.
Yeah.
And I think Chase Edmonds, a little bold take here. I think he's going to Miami. I think that would be fun. Rashard Penny. I think, oh man, I don't know what I think about him. Ben, I want to know it. I know it.
I purposely wanted to add him to this list because for 3.5 years, Rashard Penny was one of the biggest busts in the NFL. He drafted him in the first round for no apparent reason. Seahawks do not have a good draft history, by the way. But they drafted him in the first round for no apparent reason. And he really underwhelmed. He really really didn't do much. But then, like, the last probably 6 games of the season, the dude had a 200-yard game, 150-yard game, like a 2-touchdown game, a 3-touchdown game. And he really he hit his stride, ironically. Perfect timing, I guess, for him to hit his stride. But like the first 3 years, he had like a combined 1,000 yards. And then this year he had like 750. So he really didn't do good, but like these last few games of this past season, you really saw why he was drafted in the first round. Big back with a lot of speed. So it'll be interesting to see what his value is, because he hadn't had that production, but he showed his potential.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not going to argue any of that. We're going to move on to Marlon Mack as our last running back. I don't think he's staying in Indianapolis given how last year turned out. Jonathan Taylor's their guy, and he's not going to want to be that number 2 option. So I think ultimately, he's going to start somewhere, but he's not going to put up the numbers that, he used to, because I mean, he's still a solid running back. I just think he's just not that guy for Indianapolis, especially. And then, in terms of where he could go, I think he's going to be the next Texans running back, honestly.
I've always been a little lower on him. I kind of view him more in the Cordell Patterson role, small guy, kind of more of a gadget guy. Anybody who's really paying attention to the draft. Watched the draft this past year. He's pretty much a Kenny Gainwell guy. He's kind of a do-it-all, but I don't think he's big enough nor strong enough to kind of take the entire load of running back room. I think if he's the number 1 running back, I think it's going to kind of be like a 1A, 1B kind of situation, more of a running back kind of by committee. I don't think he can be a true running back 1. He just doesn't have the size. And he really, quite honestly, doesn't have the running ability. He can run, But he's more of a receiving back than he is a running back, which is ironic. But yeah, yep, Marlon Mack.
All right. So teams that need a running back include the Falcons, Bills, Texans, Dolphins, and Cardinals. But as for the mock draft episode, that is going to still be a thing this week. It's something I am actually really looking forward to. But we are also, due to time restraints and everything, we are also not going to have the 3 bold takes this week, mainly because of the combine and everything. We were so overwhelmed with the opportunity to go to the combine that we didn't really have our 3 bold takes prepared, because we wanted to give you guys that draft information and everything, to give you guys the draft point of view, the inside look, if you will, that it gives you the best draft content on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. But in terms of our 3 bold takes, and we're not doing that, but go listen to the mock draft episode of this week after this one as well. But with that being said, we will be doing our gridiron goofs this week.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest on the podcast, a surprise guest, if you will. Ben, you want to introduce this special guest?
The very beautiful, wonderful, talented, maybe I'm not gonna even say biasly because it's true. Mary Daw, she is my girlfriend. She attended the combine with her. And we're gonna kind of the different fun questions that she asked us. I'm not gonna really give her too much shit for it. Earplugs. I probably should have said that ahead of saying that.
You're fine. Don't worry.
Probably I'm not going to give her too much poo-poo on it because she doesn't know enough about football, but just some fun questions. And maybe if we have time, we'll ask her a little bit of trivia questions about the NFL. But Mary, do you kind of want to tell us how you got to the combine and kind of what your impressions of it were?
Hi. So, like Ben said, I am Mary, Ben's girlfriend. I've been together with this nut job for 2 years now, and he is super into all things draft. And so the combine, when he came across that opportunity, if you listened last week, like he was literally almost like near tears. I was on the phone with him when he was recording, and like I had to stop what I was doing. And I was a cheerleader all throughout my life, and he's always been supportive of me going to my things. And I'm sure he didn't like it all the time. And so I thought, you know what? I will be supportive of him and experience this, even though I don't know anything. So when I went, I was very confused about the whole like premise of the combine. And I think I said it reminded me of the Hunger Games when they were being tested and scored, because they were like measuring their hands, watching them run, how high they could jump, and stuff like that. And I also made a joke that I felt like I was watching a bunch of livestock because I mean, people are betting on these players. They are watching their every move. And, Ryan made a comment, oh, no, it's not because they're not getting branded. And I was like, well, once they get picked, they are getting branded because they'll be representing that team. So,
Touche.
yeah. So it was just, I don't know, it was very weird to me at first that someone would want to be there for all day, all 4 days, like how Ben was. And he had a little notebook with sticky notes and color codes and all this other stuff. And I was just like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is why I have not heard from you the past 4 days. So yeah, that was my overall impressions.
So just review as well. We will be going over some of the funny to me and Ben, the comments that Mary had made that day. And I will say, like Ben said, we're not going to give her too much crap just because, she even said that she doesn't know too much about it. I will say my experience with my lovely girlfriend, Caitlin, She also asked questions and stuff like that when we went to our first Bears game together, when they played the Giants. And so it's funny for Ben and I to just kind of laugh about and everything, but it's not something that is particularly uncommon. But we can totally joke around and say that it's totally because they're cheerleaders, right? Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all right, Ben, what was one of the first things that she had talked about at the draft, or the combine, I should say?
The number one thing that really got me, and I'll have Mary kind of explain how she asked this question and how this thought process kind of arise. And if you don't quite remember, I can help you along with it too, but I'll give the table to Mary. But she asked me if Peyton Manning was dead.
Okay. So if you've ever been to Lucas Oil Colts Stadium, there's this like blue ring above the balconies, and it's called like the Ring of Honor or
The Ring of
something.
Honor. Yep.
Yeah, something like that. And basically what they explained to me is like famous people go up there that have contributed a lot to the program or one of the greats, stuff like that. And I saw like, a start year and an end year. I didn't really do the math.
98 to
But
11.
yeah, that year. And whenever I see years like that, I assume that that's a death date and that this guy died. And so I was like, oh, I didn't know Peyton Manning was dead. And they're like, what? And I'm like, it says he died in 2011. And they're like, no, he retired in 2011. And then Ben's like, that makes no sense, Mary, that it was 1998 to 2011. How is he going to be playing in the football, like NFL, when he's like a kid? It was, I don't know.
All right. Okay. For those who don't know why I'm laughing, Peyton Manning did not retire in 2011 either. Peyton Manning
Oh
didn't
no.
retire in 2011. Peyton Manning stopped paying for the Colts in 2011.
Yeah.
He went on to play for the Broncos for a few years. So no,
They
Peyton
just
Manning is not dead. He is. That would have mean he was 13 years. He was only alive for 13 years.
this is the greatest middle schooler to ever play in the NFL
Exactly.
and then die shortly after.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Another
know
one.
what? I didn't read too much into it. After I said it, I realized how stupid it sounds. This is gonna be a trend with me. I say things and then I realize later they make no sense.
I do want to say, and I'll give Mary credit. I've known Mary strictly because of how close she is, and with my girlfriend Caitlin, and also how she's together with Ben and for so long. I have known that Mary is actually a very smart person, despite what you might hear on the podcast today. So just we're not trying to sway you away from that idea that she's some.
No,
I promise you,
very,
she
very
is a
smart.
very
Yes.
intelligent person.
Yes.
That will
Thank
go
you.
on to do great things, but
Thank you.
it just probably won't be football related.
Hey, it's the support that counts. She supported me through all of this, which is very makes the job a lot easier having the support.
Ben, why don't we talk about one more thing that she had said at the combine, and then we'll go into trivia for Mary.
All right, so there's two really stand out that I want to get to two more.
Okay, two more.
Two more. So
Well,
she
bonus
was,
content.
Yeah, she was. We were obviously, everybody who watches the combine, who watches football, kind of knows. The 40-yard dash is kind of the main spectacle of the dash, or of the combine. And the first question that she asked me when we got there was,
I
Mary?
asked if they run all together or one at a time. And I felt like it made sense to me that they would run all together because that seems the most efficient to me.
Essentially
But
racing each other is what she
yeah,
was
but
asking.
racing, that's what I said. I said, do they race each other to try to get the best time? Because Ben and Ryan explained to me what's a good time, what's a kind of good time, what's a bad time. So I was like, oh, like, are they like one at a time, or are they all just going for each other? And they're like, no, they go one at a time. And I felt like that was kind of redundant because it took a very long time. Um, but then they also explained to me how they do kind of race each other in a way, because sometimes the media crew will take the clips of them running and stitch them side by side so it looks like they're racing, but they're not. So yeah.
And
Funny
kind of the
idea,
last
though.
thing, yeah, it would be fun. I would love to see. I think they need to add that.
Yeah.
Um, and then the last thing, again, as you guys heard, Mary has heckled me all in good fun. Kind of about being a nerd about all of this, and kind of like, again, being there from start to finish all 4 days. And kind of like, why would anybody want to do that? Like, you're crazy. And she knew, because I was, again, I talked to her about this stuff. Obviously, it's, again, like she said, one of my biggest hobbies. And she knew that each group had kind of a physical evaluation period where they do their med evals and everything. And she asked me, she goes, so did you, Ryan and Matt, at any point in the draft or any point through the combine, kind of leave the on-field stuff and go and watch the doctors administrate the physical exams to these players? And she thought we watched the physicians give these poor players their
I mean, you
physicals.
guys are watching them do everything else to these guys, so I expect nonetheless. And that just again really struck weird to me.
No
Because,
way.
I'm going to school to be a physician, and I feel like if I was examining someone, I would not want a stadium full of people watching me.
No.
Yeah, that's
And
why.
so
Yep,
yeah.
that's why they don't.
If I was the person being examined, I wouldn't want to turn my head and cough in front of hundreds of people. That's just not what I want to
Yeah,
do.
and then that's when we really get into the Hunger Games theory and the
Yep.
animal theory.
You just hold up the three fingers when, the doctor holds up the three fingers underneath you.
Right.
All right. So Ben, let's get into trivia. This will be fun. Ben,
Yep.
let's go back and forth, and
Yep.
we'll give Mary some questions in terms of the
We'll try to
NFL
make
in
it
general.
easy for you too, Mary. Nothing too
Yeah,
hard.
nothing crazy. Ben, you can start.
All right, Mary. We're gonna make
Is this
this
like
one
trivia
easy.
crack questions? Like,
No, it's just NFL questions.
okay.
All right, we're gonna make this one easy. I've no a little easy, not too easy like Jalen Hurts. We both know that you know Jalen Hurts, the starting quarterback.
I know
for
him,
the
yeah.
Eagles. Who was the Heisman winner in 2020? Who now plays for the Eagles? We
Oh my
drafted him this past year, and I was jumping up and down.
Aiden Hutchinson.
No, no. The Eagles drafted him this past. He played in the NFL
Trayvon
this past.
Jackson Davis.
Tyrese Jackson Davis is a basketball player for the University of Indiana. For the University
Oh,
of
that's my team.
Yep, for IU. No,
more.
he played. You get one more guess. Again, I'll give you a hint, Mary. He played for Alabama. Now he plays for the Eagles. He plays wide receiver. His name starts with a D.
Derrick Rose.
Swing and a
Nope.
miss. Strike three.
That's a Chicago Bears basketball player. Devontae
Bulls.
Smith. Or I said Bears. Oh my goodness. Bulls.
Actually, he's
Devontae Smith
a Knicks player now, but
right now, but he's known for the Bulls. Devontae Smith, Mary.
he's a
Devontae Smith.
Heisman winner.
Heisman winner.
Okay. As for my trivia question, who was the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts this past season and former starting quarterback for your boyfriend Ben's Philadelphia Eagles?
Oh, Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Ding ding. Wow.
That one's easy.
Good.
Ooh.
All right.
As
Okay.
she just previously said Derrick Rose for the Heisman winner.
She guessed two basketball players. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
One of them that I go to school with.
Yeah.
Right, we're gonna make it. We're making it a little harder for you here, Mary.
Okay.
What team did Tom Brady just play for?
Oh, the Bucks.
Wow. Oh. Okay.
What
He
team did
kisses his
Tom?
kid on the lips.
He does. What? I'll continue the trend. What college did Tom Brady go to prior to being drafted?
Roll Tide.
No. Strike one.
Oh. He didn't go to Bama?
Mary.
Shut up, Ben.
Michigan.
Yep, there it is. There's
There
the
you
hint.
go.
There it is.
We
He
knew
went
this
to
one.
Michigan?
He did
we
go to
had this
Michigan. He was a
conversation.
Michigan
Yep, he
boy.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
I didn't know
All
that.
right, Ben.
We're gonna we're gonna stray away from this NFL question here. We're gonna really test your relationship here with Ryan. What basketball team?
This is a football podcast.
Yep. But this is Ryan here. Ryan here. Me and Ryan are the attraction of this podcast. What can I say? College or NBA.
Oh,
What
man.
basketball team does Ryan like?
We'll keep it football after this, Mary. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll keep it football. You get 3 guesses.
Basketball team, Ryan. Basketball team. I don't really hear Ryan talk about basketball too much, so
I obsess over football. I'll give you that.
no, you're not a Sixers fan because Ben's weird.
I despise the Sixers.
What about the Pacers? Do you like them?
God. No, I'd be very depressed if I was a Pacers fan.
For sure.
Oh boy.
I am a
Okay.
very happy person. There's your hint.
Yep.
You're a happy person.
Cuba.
mean-
That's another good hint. Cuba.
So you're like a Lakers fan.
No.
What?
No.
All right.
You're kind of close though.
Well,
Judging by the
in
players.
popularity. Yeah, well,
In
judging by the
populars.
players. Yep.
All right, third
here's
guess.
your final hint. Miami. What NBA teams in Miami?
Miami Heat.
That was
There
just
you
a
go.
blatantly obvious hint, but
I did not think she was gonna get it. I really didn't think she knew the Heat was in Miami. I
And
thought
then a
the
little
Cuba
fun
hit would have
fact.
gave it away.
I'm a huge Kentucky guy for basketball
Mm-mm.
as well.
For sure.
Okay, for football, what college did my favorite current player, Justin Fields, attend just a couple years
The
ago?
starting quarterback for the Bears. What college did he go to?
Technically, there's 2 answers here, but I'll give you like major props if you can guess the first one. But which one did he finish playing for?
Justin Fields. I feel like Ben has talked about him before in his college days.
Oh, believe me.
Oh, he said.
Yes, I
There's
have.
no way he went to Michigan.
Nope.
'Cause that's too
No.
obvious.
What other college team do I talk about the most that is not Michigan?
Michigan State.
That's
Close,
strike
but
one.
no. Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Strike
When have I
2.
ever talked about Wisconsin?
Hey, you are close in colors.
Yeah, close in colors. So same colors. And I said you're
No,
close. when we
not
talked about
Ohio
Miss-
State.
The Ohio State University.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. Yep. And I'll give you.
And he was a stud. He was
I'll
a
give you a
stud.
hint for the other team, Mary. Let's see how much you pay attention to me. The other school he went to, the name of the mascot was UGA.
Oh, University of Georgia, Atlanta.
Why Athens? Athens. But yeah, UAG.
All right.
Wow,
They have a fat
that
bulldog.
shocked me. He's very cute. UGA is
No,
very,
he's not.
very cute.
Butler Blue is way better.
You're a jerk.
Ben, you got another question?
All right, Mary. This is an open-ended question here. Okay.
Okay.
Could you, for anybody who doesn't know, she goes to IU. So we'll keep it football related. Could you name a single player for IU football?
Oh yeah. Okay.
No, and you can't say Michael.
I couldn't.
Penix. You can't say Michael Penix. He's no
Okay.
longer.
Big flex. I know an IU football player. Zach Merrill. I know him.
Okay, he
Um,
doesn't count because he has never ever played a single snap in a real game.
Hey,
but
no,
he's
he's still on the
on the
team.
team. He's
No,
on the
no, he
team.
has to
He's
play.
on
Somebody
the
that's played.
roster.
Somebody that has played.
Tuttle.
Okay. Wow.
Tuttle. That
Here's
guy
what.
that one of my
Could you
friends are talking to, Andy.
could you properly pronounce the starting quarterback's last name for IU's last 2 years ago?
2 years ago. What's his last name? Michael what? You have to properly pronounce it.
Penix.
Wow. Congratulations. Yep. All right.
You
And
can't
Ryan,
forget about the junior.
no, you can't. Ryan, do you wanna round out you wanna round this out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Give me just a second. Okay. Who won the Super Bowl? What was that? 4 years ago? 4 years ago. Who won the Super Bowl 4 years ago?
All right, let's see. As a freshman, my school did a Super Bowl drive every year, and so I'm trying to figure out who the two teams were. Uh, Freshman year.
There was an awesome trick play in this Super Bowl.
Named after.
Don't
This
just
won't-
Ben.
No,
just
stop.
Ben.
This won't get it. Named after the city that played for that. The trick plays named after the city.
Was it the Broncos?
No. Close though, but no. Close in year. Close in year.
Okay, close in year. Yeah.
So the Broncos did play that year.
Not
No.
that year, but
Oh.
close in like range of Super Bowls. Like you're in the like within 3
Same
years of that.
stratosphere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Chiefs were junior and senior year. Because the Chiefs and the Bucks. Sophomore and freshman year is kind of a blur.
She's got 2 more
The
guesses, man.
Rams.
No. This
No,
was
but
I have one
the
more guess.
year. You're so close. This is the
Yeah.
year after that. I mean, year
Mhm.
before that. Sorry.
Before. So the Rams were in the Super Bowl your sophomore year.
Okay.
So think of the year before that.
Oh, I got one more trivia question after this one. Just
Yep.
give me one more.
No,
But
you're
yes, one more guess.
And if she gets
Uh,
this wrong, I'm gonna give her a giveaway hint.
No, this is my last guess.
Yeah, but I'm gonna give you a giveaway hint after this guess.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Mary, think
Just-
of the flags I have hung up in my room.
There's an awesome sandwich.
Not the Eagles.
The Eagles did win. Yes.
It was the Eagles. Yes,
When
it
we were
was.
freshmen? Wow, that's crazy. I
Mhm,
thought it was
mhm.
longer than that.
No, it was
Okay.
freshman year. Yep.
And
Ben-
the name of the trick play that he was referring to is called the Philly Special.
It was the coolest play I've ever seen in any Super Bowl ever,
Phenomenal.
with the exception of the Devin Hester return for a touchdown kickoff. But for the last trivia question, I this one will be fun just because of the theme of the broadcast or the podcast and how Ben's an Eagles fan and how I'm a Bears fan. Who won the last matchup in the playoffs between the Eagles and the Bears, and what happened in that game?
What was the game-winning play? Game-deciding play.
The Eagles won,
Okay.
and
Ding ding.
and
Yep.
the play that made them win was they blitzed it to the end zone, but they needed to review the play because they did something wrong.
They blitzed it to the end zone.
Yeah.
What? All right. So blitz.
Okay, so you got the first
So-
part right.
running. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So let's break this down real quick.
Who blitzed it into the end zone?
No. Just start over from that part.
Come on. Who blitzed?
The the Eagles did.
Okay. Well, blitzing is a term for defense.
And they run.
Yeah, and that means when they send the linebacker. So that's for defense. So no. No. No.
This hurts me. Just
Yeah, it does.
what happened on that last play?
The last play. It didn't again, I didn't notice how I didn't say game winning. I said game
What?
Did they
nothing. The
did they
Eagles
hit
didn't
each other too
anything.
hard and almost got like unsportsmanlike conduct or something?
No.
This had nothing to do with the Eagles. It had everything to do with the Bears. And the Bears not executing something properly.
Was it when that dude completely missed the field goal?
The double doink.
The double
The
doink.
double doink.
Was it
Cody
that?
Parkey got.
Yes,
Oh yeah, it
was.
was.
We got rid of him real fast after that.
Yeah.
Oh, he was getting death threats.
Yeah.
Yep.
I might have sent him. I'm just kidding. No, I didn't.
So,
But I did contribute to changing his Wikipedia page.
Absolutely.
To
I'm all
let
for that.
yeah.
But again, before you close this out, Ryan, again, Mary, I just want, and for those who don't know, Mary is also the same person who made the logo. I know we
Yes.
Oh
mentioned
my
it.
gosh.
I know we mentioned it. She
Uh-oh.
Oh, we're doing so good.
again.
We didn't hear you, buddy.
I know. Okay, so Mary made the logo. Thank you. We really, really appreciate that. But again, I just want to thank you for supporting me in this podcast endeavor. I'm sure Ryan appreciates the support as well.
Oh yeah.
But thank you for the support. It means a lot. And I really appreciate knowing that I have you in my corner while I do this. Thank you.
Oh, of course. And thank you for inviting me on your guys' podcast. I think we
Yeah.
need to have trivia again, but with me and Caitlin.
Yes,
Oh.
Caitlin needs to be on this.
She'll beat me.
Caitlin, you know what? Here. We can't promise anything. Again, wink wink. Something watch, make sure you tune into the next episode. Caitlin cannot be on, well, maybe Caitlin can be on the next episode.
Potentially.
But potentially. But next episode, tune in. But we'll have Caitlin on within the next few weeks for sure. I can guarantee
yeah.
that.
I
but
would be
tune in
more
to the
than
next
happy
episode.
to introduce
be-
to everybody.
I would love for her to come on. This was kind of a last minute thing. We didn't think Mary was going to come on. But yeah, I would love to have Caitlin come on.
All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this week's episode of the Pigskin Project. So, if you made it this far, we want to say thank you. If you enjoyed this week's episode of the Pigskin Project, please leave a review. We have a lot scheduled for next week's show, as Ben said. I'm very excited. There may or may not be a special guest, but make sure that you're subscribed or following on us on all platforms. We did start up a Twitter account, so be on the lookout for that as well.
Where we released breaking news, by the way, not to
at
brag.
the Pigskin Pod. We'd like to give a big thank you to Anchor.fm for helping us promote our podcast, and Mary for coming on. Please leave a review down below, as it helps us more than you know. And that's it for this week. So thanks again for tuning in to the Pigskin Project.